This episode of our program Arab Affairs. As usual, we will be discussing an important Arab affair. Today, Egypt is hosting an important conference on Libya with all the neighboring countries of Libya. Just ahead of this meeting, or at the opening session, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry said that the Sukhairat agreement is the ideal solution to the Libyan crisis and would guarantee active participation of all Libyan factions to end the current crisis. He said that, of course, during the opening speech of the conference of the neighboring of countries neighboring to Libya, Egypt is committed to upholding Libya's sovereignty, supporting its legitimate institutions, and rejecting foreign interference in this crisis. Of course, this is the 10th meeting of the group of the countries, and the group includes Tunisia, Algeria, Sudan, Niger, Chad, as well as the United Nations envoy, Martin Kobler, and a representative of the African Union, as well as the representative of the Arab League. Five amendments, proposed amendments to the Sukhairat agreement has been discussed in this and the previous meeting of the neighboring countries of Libya. Those include the makeup of the Libyan National Dialogue Committee to better balance the country's faction, a change in the duties of the army commander, the measures to maintain the independence of the armed forces and separate them from political conflicts. These are the 5 amendments that are required for the Sukhairat agreement in order to balance the chaotic situation that has been really hitting Libya since 2011 and up till this minute did not is continuing or is ongoing. Egypt has been really playing a very vital role in finding a real solution to the Libyan crisis. It has been doing this role since years up till this minute. On Friday, just yesterday, Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Mahmoud Higazi met with the Libya's General Khalifa Haftar in Cairo to discuss the latest developments in Libya. Last week, President Fattah al-Sisi also met with the chairman of the Libyan Presidential Council, Fayez Sarraj, in order also to discuss the developments and find concrete solutions to the situation. Now, exactly what is going on in Libya, that will be our discussion of the day. Before explaining the situation in Libya and going through further details, let's first have a quick look on the Arab news that took place during this week, and we'll come back.
The United Nations said that the UN Syria envoy Staffan de Mistura will attend peace talks in the Kazakh capital next week after previously announcing he was sending a deputy. A UN spokesman said that Secretary General Antonio Guterres asked de Mistura to attend in light of the importance of the issues likely to be raised in Astana and of the senior level at which the conveners of the meeting will be represented. De Mistura said he wants negotiations to resume in Geneva on February the 8th. The United States, meanwhile, said it was in reviewing an invitation to attend the talks. The talks are being organized by Iran, Russia, and Turkey, with rebel leaders and Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's representatives expected to meet face to face. In Geneva, the head of UN's Humanitarian Task Force for Syria, Jan Egeland, told reporters that the ceasefire brokered in December by Moscow and Ankara had been a disappointment in terms of improving humanitarian access. Egeland complained that aside from fighting imposed by the regime and opposition forces was blocking civilians from receiving supplies. Egeland and the UN's World Food Programme also said food supplies in the town of Deir ez-Zor could run out in a few weeks. He added that the WFP had to suspend humanitarian airdrops in Deir ez-Zor because of heavy fighting, stressing that 93,000 people living under siege in Deir ez-Zor really don't have any lifeline other than relief by air. Iraqi forces battled the last holdout terrorists in East Mosul after commanders declared victory there and quickly set their sights on the city's west, where more tough fighting awaits. The announcement that the left bank of the Tigris River had been retaken was a key milestone in the offensive that began 3 months ago. Staff General Talib Shigati, who heads the counterterrorism service spearheading the fighting in Mosul, declared the left bank liberated. Iraqi forces were still fighting there on Thursday, flushing out fighters from Daesh in neighborhoods east of the river. Jordan is deploying more forces to face a growing threat to its borders as Daesh extremists in Iraq and Syria are being dislodged from some strongholds. The commander of the kingdom's border guards, Brigadier General Sami Kafwin, said he expects some of the retreating Daesh militants to make their way to southern Syria close to Jordan. He said that Daesh-affiliated groups already had positions in southern Syria, some a few hundred meters from the border, ahead of a tour of military positions along the stretch of Jordan's border with Syria.
Right, welcome back. And as we said, we will explain why is Libya in continuous chaotic scene, what is going on in Libya, and we really want to explain what is really going on in Libya. If we want really to explain, then we don't have to go back to 2011, but rather to 2014. And 2014, why? Because it was the start of negotiations that led to the latest Sukhayrat agreement. Now, if we go back to 2014, and we have to say that the second Libyan civil war, that is how we can call it. It was an ongoing conflict among rival groups seeking control of territory of Libya. Now, the conflict has been mostly between the government of the Council of Deputies, the COD, that was elected democratically in 2014, also known as the Tobruk government. Remember the Tobruk government? And the internationally recognized right now, which is the Libyan government, which is the Libyan Presidential Council, but it was known as the General National Congress, the GNC. And they endorsed a government, also called as the National Salvation Government. That was, of course, in 2014, based in the capital Tripoli, and established after the Libya Dawn. The Libya Dawn, if we remember, it was headed by General Khalifa Haftar. These were the alliances, or this was the situation in 2014. In December 2015, the Libyan Political Agreement, the LPA, was signed, and the LPA was the result of protectorate negotiations between rival political camps. Of course, the government in Tripoli and the government in Tobruk, and they signed what they called the Government of National Accord. That was the Sukhayrat agreement, because that was signed in Morocco, in the Sukhayrat city of Morocco. Although this was signed, but the National Salvation Government has never been really active, or it was not functioning up till this moment. Why? Because the House of Representatives, which was elected democratically in 2014, has never given the green lights or the okay for the government to be established. They didn't think really that the government is composing all the factions on the ground. Now, if we get back to the situation on the ground, just to understand how the realities on the ground, on the map, works. And we have to understand that this is Libya. Libya, as we can see, is a country in the Maghreb region of North Africa. It is bordering Egypt to the east, Sudan to, of course, the southeast, Chad and Niger, To the south, Algeria and Tunisia, as we can see, to the west. The situation here, or what or who control what exactly, if you can see the green light, and this is the area of the internationally recognized government, or the GNC, or the Libyan Presidential Council here. If this area of the Sahara is controlled by the Tubu militia, this brown one is controlled by the Doon fighters, or of course the forces which are really recognized by the representatives of or the House of Representatives, or the forces, the Libyan forces that are led by Khalifa Haftar, General Khalifa Haftar. Tuareg militia are to the east side with the blue color, and they are near to Algeria and Tunisia, as we can see. Daesh, which is a threat, a real threat that has emerged as a real threat to the situation, or to further complicate the situation in Libya, as we see, are in areas that are colored with black, just spots in areas like Derna, Bayada, in Beni Ghazi, in Misrata, and other areas spotted in Libya at large. Now, of course, there are other extremists. They are mostly in the area to the south with the red color. Of course, another extremist group is Ansar al-Sharia, and they exist in spots area along with Daesh. Now, this is the situation on the ground. This is how it is controlled. What is happening on the ground is that the United States, after the presidential or the Libyan Presidential Council demanded its interference, and of course the United States has been preparing for that since a while, started bombing areas of where it called a strong hold of Daesh, despite that by the end of last year, General Haftar had already controlled those areas and put the forces. Now, this is the issue just before yesterday, or before President Trump, the new US elect president, took office. We don't know really what will be happening. The next stage, would Libya be in the rectangle of Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and the areas where the US is really interfering with all its force? We don't know really whether there has been a kind of agreement between the United States and Russia of what concerns Libya, as this happened in Syria. We only know that there was a clear message or a clear statement from Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who said that we cannot permit Libya to go as a failed state, as what happened in Syria. These were exactly the situation on the ground. This is exactly how things are being run. Key international players, of course, Egypt is one of the countries, and of course all the neighboring African countries are really keen to have a stable Libya in order to have an active functioning country, secure their borders, because all of them are in real threat of what is going on in Libya. There are other players, ones who interfered at the very beginning, the NATO allies, of course that including France, Britain, Italy, they were all included in the NATO hit in the 2011. After that, of course, there was the direct interference of France, then the direct interference now of the United States, and we will be seeing, of course, a role by Russia. It has already started to happen. Those are the key players here in Libya, plus, of course, some of the hidden players and who are really funding the extremists in those areas, and unfortunately some of them are Arabs. What are we expecting for Libya? This is exactly what we will be discussing today, and of course this important conference that is taking place here in Cairo at the Foreign Ministry, with all the Libyan factions attending such an important conference. Let's watch this report and we'll come back for discussion.
Egypt is scheduled to host the 10th meeting of the foreign ministers of Libya's neighboring countries. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry will head the meeting, which includes Egypt, Libya, Algeria, Tunisia, Niger, and Chad. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ambassador Ahmed Abu Zaid said Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghait and United Nations Special Envoy to Libya Martin Kobler, as well as the African Union's representative, would attend the meeting. Abu Zaid noted that the meeting would tackle the latest developments in Libya, as well as ongoing regional and international efforts that aim to restore stability in the country, support various peace initiatives to bridge gaps among Libyan militias, and realize people's dreams and aspirations. According to the Foreign Ministry spokesman, the meeting would discuss ways to preserve peace and security in Libya, as well as achieve stability and activate national institutions' role to face current challenges. On the ground, more than 80 Daesh terrorists were killed in U.S. aerial blitz on the terrorist group training camps in Libya, including militants involved in plotting attacks in Europe. U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter said Thursday that the Pentagon made the highly unusual decision to conduct the airstrikes with a pair of B-2 stealth bombers that flew to North Africa on a 34-hour mission from their base in Missouri in America's Midwest. The camps were located about 45 kilometers southwest of Sirte, a month after the United States had officially wrapped up its military operations in and around the coastal city.
Right, welcome back, and the situation goes as such. Now, as the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump presidency begins, the United States said that it was targeting the extremists in 3 known areas of active hostilities with strict guidelines to protect their own civilians: Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria, for much of 2016. Now, their 4th region started just a few days ago, and that was around Sirte, Libya. Now, to highlight the conference taking place in Egypt and to highlight the developments in Libya at large, we have with us over the phone Ambassador Wafa Bassem, a former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good evening to you. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, Ambassador Wafa Bassem, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you very much for being with us. And we're speaking about the conference that is taking place today at the Foreign Ministry. How important is it? What are exactly the agenda of the talks this time?
Well, the conference of the neighboring countries of Libya that is taking place today in Cairo under the auspices of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Egypt, or under the auspices of the government of Egypt, is sort of another step, further step in the efforts that are being exerted by Egypt as one of the very important neighboring countries to Libya and a very active participant in all efforts that have been done to establish peace and stability in Libya after what took place in 2011 and 12, and to ensure the implementation, the full implementation of the recommendations and decisions taken by the Sukhairat series of meetings to establish peace and stability in Libya, and to ensure a reconciliation, a national reconciliation, and to align the Libyan people with its different factions in a unity that would ensure the return of and the normalization of the political, economic life of Libya.
Yes. If we speak about amendments that has been discussed since the last session, this is the 10th one, so in the 9th, there were some amendments that were really proposed. Among them was the change of the makeup of the Libyan National Dialogue Committee to better balance the country's factions. Up till this minute, we have seen, as we all see, the Libyan Parliament or the Libyan House of Representatives do not agree to a lineup of the government that is by the head of the Presidential Council, Fayez Sarraj. So far, there has no approval to such a government because they said that it does not really represent or make a balance between all the Libyan faction. So how important is one or the first proposal of amendments to the Sukhairat agreement?
I think this is a very important topic, but actually it has to be dealt with among the Libyans themselves. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Egypt said, and the UN Special Envoy Martin Kobler said, and also the Secretary General of the League of Arab States said that the role of this conference, the role of all the efforts, is a role of facilitation. It facilitates through such principles and ideas. It facilitates to bring back the different factions of Libya to discuss among themselves the Libyan affairs. Any solution that has, even including that amendment, where there is a seeking of a better balance of power according to some, or a better distribution of the authority according to others, all this has to be discussed among Libyans themselves, because there is no way that you would achieve a harmonious solution that would bring together all the Libyans around a unified government, a unified parliament, unless it stems from the Libyans themselves. So what would be, in my opinion, the role of the meeting today and the subsequent efforts that would take place, or drafting committees, or experts meeting on languages, law, constitutional law, and so on and so forth, it will be to facilitate that bringing together of the Libyans.
Right.
We are not here, I mean the other neighboring countries are not here
to choose for the Libyans
on behalf of the Libyans.
Yes, definitely.
Negotiations took place, and what we need now is to implement.
Right. Another important amendment that is proposed here is the change of duties of the army commander and the measures to maintain the independence of the armed forces. Now, we have seen some changes in how things ran throughout Libya in the past few months. Now, what we have seen, alliance between the international recognized government and the Libyan armed forces is not as before. And now there is an approval by the Libyan representatives who were democratically chosen in 2014 and between the armed forces. Now, the armed forces or the Libyan armed forces is an important composition of the institutions of Libya, because it is the main guarantor to any chaos that could erupt, or even the stability of the whole situation in Libya. How important is this particular amendment to Sukhayrat agreement?
Of course, the military, the army, and let's say the militarized component of the Sukhayrat agreement and any subsequent efforts is quite important. But what applies to the other components applies as well to the military component. It means it has to be established, codified by the Libyans themselves. What is important now is to unite the many militarized and armed factions, whether the internationally recognized or the others, and the militias as well, under one unit. So the arms are not spread all over the country. And there is a control that has to be done. As you have seen, there was a military or an armed attack in Benghazi very recently, which means that not all those who are holding arms are working for the benefit of Libya.
Definitely.
You have seen also the efforts that are being done by Egypt to bring together General Haftar and the political component so they can be together. You have seen also that Cairo has seen recently a lot of meetings that brought together Libyan personalities, political, parliamentarian, media, social, to see how can the Sukhayrat agreement could be implemented. These meetings were under, of course, Field Marshal Mahmoud Higazi, the Egyptian
Chief of Staff,
Major General of Staff of the
armed forces
of the army, and some of them, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, have participated into them. Those who are meeting today, the neighboring countries, have been informed on some of what, on most of what has been done during these meetings. So it's very important that there is a control on the arms that are spreading all over Libya. It is important to differentiate between those who are having the arms for the purpose of terrorism, extremism, attacks on innocent population, and those who are recognized by the international community as the Libyan army, to unify the lines of this Libyan army, to bring those who want to reconcile and become part of the Libyan army, and at the same time to try to encounter or counter-attack those who are belonging to extremist groups, whether Daesh or others.
Yes, definitely, and there are very or numerous of them in Libya, particularly as you said, Daesh, Ansar al-Sharia, and of
And
course the
others.
Tawareg rebels. Yes,
And
yes,
others, of
others and
course.
others. If we speak about key players or key international players, then we have to say yes, there is the role played by Egypt and the other role played by the neighboring countries who are surrounding Libya, and those very much want and are keen on the stability of Libya because it is a direct threat to their national security. And definitely the stability of Libya would be the stability of all the surrounding areas. But there are other international players, and if we speak about particularly the United States and recently Russia. Now, just few days ago, and the United States put Libya as the fourth area of active hostilities, or so it called it, after Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria, and started bombing areas, or what it called areas of Daesh stronghold, in order to be able to facilitate the situation for the internationally recognized government. And as it said, it is helping the Libyan armed forces. Of course, we're speaking about just days or just one day before Mr. Trump, or the U.S. new elect president, assume office. We are also speaking about...
Well, he actually has resumed office, started
yesterday.
Putting presidential decrees. Maybe what he has done until now concerns only the internal program of former President Obama concerning health insurance and care. But what we have heard, rumors are saying, for instance, that he's on the way of changing many of the U.S. ambassadors abroad. As we have heard yesterday on his short but quite explaining or showing what is his vision about a very general vision that that the United States will not continue expanding on the detriment, expanding abroad in its activities like before, that America comes first, that the American
yes, we have seen the speech
come first. And if we join to that what he said before, that whoever needs the protection or the involvement of the U.S. would have to sort of pay or have a return to that effort, and nothing is for free, and this and that. But anyway, let's remember, of course, the fact that the U.S. started looking at Libya as an important strategic area where it is a zone of conflict, and coming forth is quite an interesting development.
Yes.
Let's remember the position of the U.S. when NATO started bombarding Libya.
Definitely.
They wanted to sort of disengage from that action of NATO. They were not happy, very, very happy about it. They thought that there were no enough consultations done at the level of the alliance for NATO to start making action. Maybe they thought it was too far, and that was more an area of interest to the European Union. Of course, Libya is of very high strategic importance to the EU, especially for the European countries that are on the shore of the Mediterranean.
Yes, I guess we'll have to wait and see how the upcoming U.S. Presidency would really react, and I guess how Russia's role would be inevitable at this upcoming stage, whether direct or indirect, as the situation is right now. We'll have to wait and see. Also, we'll have to wait and see how today's conference, very important conference, would come out with important results for Libya. Before we finish our episode, let's first have a quick look on the economic news, which is as important as the political one. Let's watch these news and we'll come back. Finance Minister Amr al-Garhi said that Egypt will make further cuts to energy subsidies, raise taxes, and seek more international financing as it pursues economic reforms this year. Speaking at a Cairo press conference, al-Garhi said such steps are part of ongoing economic reforms the country urgently needs to avoid major economic challenges. The finance minister added that the government agreed in November to slash fuel subsidies as part of the IMF reform package, but because the country floated its currency at the same time, the subsidy bill ballooned. Without providing figures, al-Garhi said the cost of subsidies rose as a result of the current exchange rate, and this right now is the biggest challenge the government faces on the economy. But al-Garhi said the IMF deal had raised investor confidence in Egypt, especially the fund's reviews the implementation of reform package. al-Garhi said that each tranche would be repaid within 10 years of disbursements, with a 4.5-year grace period. He added Egypt will also seek to raise more money on international markets, starting with a road show from Monday to promote dollar bonds in the United Arab Emirates, the United States, and Britain. The minister said he expects foreign currency investments in Egyptian treasuries to reach $11 billion. Saudi Arabian energy minister said that the kingdom is set to launch a renewable energy program worth up to $50 billion as the world's largest oil exporter vies to diversify its economy. Minister Khalid Al-Falih was speaking to the World Future Energy Summit in Abu Dhabi. Falih said the projects are aimed to reach a capacity of 10 gigawatts by 2023 and will cost between $30 billion and $50 billion, adding that they will include solar and wind power projects. He had said when the kingdom's national transformation plan was announced in June that the oil-rich kingdom plans to be a very strong competitor in renewable energy. Falih said that 70% of the kingdom's utilities, which he said will reach a total of 100 gigawatt capacity rather soon, would be fueled by gas. Saudi Arabia and other Gulf monarchies have been looking into ways to cut their energy bills and diversify their power sources away from oil, the main. Right, I guess by this we come to the end of our episode of today. Next Saturday would be another important Arab affairs, so until then it's goodbye.